Starship Vigilant, a Star Trek Adventures campaign.
Hello, this is Starship Vigilant, episode 51. So tonight we are playing Joy's Soul Lies in the Doing Part 3. Today's date is 14th of September 2022. So I am Steve, who's the GM, and we have, going around the table, we have Mike playing...
I'm playing first officer stroke helmsman, Kaz.
And we've got Kerin playing...
Kerin playing Chief Security Officer Kolish.
And we have Sarah Jane playing
Chief of Engineering and Giara Prux.
Perfect. Lovely. Right, hello everyone. Welcome back. A quick recap. So obviously Sarah Jane, you went with us last time.
I wasn't.
So that's fine. So what had happened was you had responded to a ship from a previously unknown species who you discovered were called the Akaru. Their ship had been affected by the usual electromagnetic nonsense in the Shackleton Expanse, and in so doing, you had learnt that the Akaru, the ship that you rescued, was essentially their first kind of extra solar system probe, first warp ship, or one of their first warp ships, and so you'd rendered assistance to them, had managed to conduct repairs, and you had, with the permission from Admiral Herbert at Narendra Station, you had accompanied the ship back to the Akaru homeworld of Setu, with the orders of conducting a first contact, of course, and also you had discovered that the technology being used by the Akaru had shown some signs of the Tilical influence or technology. Although primitive, it had similar power generation, power distribution network, that's the phrase I'm looking for, to the stuff that you'd found that belonged to the Tilical on the planet of Candidate 3 previously. And so you had basically accompanied the Akaru ship back to Setu. En route, last time you were basically attacked by a pirate ship, a ship that was a privateer operating in the area, that you managed to see off pretty soundly. And you'd accompanied you'd then arrived at Setu, and having then gone through sort of basic first contact procedures, you'd transported down to the capital city, which I think is called Pero. I don't think we established that last time, but I believe the capital city is called Pero. Not that important, but anyway, you'd basically, and you'd ended up beaming down to a what looked like a kind of a monastery type affair. It seemed to be some sort of site of religious significance, and you'd ended up meeting the governor of the region, whose name I'm going to completely
Butcher.
Was it? It was Akaru Buck Chiel, who is basically the kind of governor of this area. And you've learnt that the leader of the Akaru is an individual who is called the Uryax Nadayon, and you've yet to meet this person, but you are led to believe that that's going to happen. You spent the night in very luxurious accommodation, having been very well fed by the Akaru the night before. And can you think of anything important I've left out from that? I think that pretty much covers it. But
Didn't we get attacked I mean, it's a picture of a
Yeah, by the
Starship,
pirate
isn't
ship.
it?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
pirate ship. Yeah. Yeah. So you fought off the pirate ship on the way to the planet.
Yeah.
And then you'd arrived successfully. Sarah Jane, I don't know if I think I showed you this picture before, maybe, but if you look in the general chat, sorry, the STA_game chat thread, there is an image of one of the Akaru. So if you scroll back a little bit, there's a picture of a spaceship, which is the pirate ship from last week. And then there is an image of a being above that. And if you click on that, that will open it up. And that's basically what the Akaru look like. So they're kind of Vulcanoid. They've got slightly pointed ears.
Yep.
And you suspect they might have some sort of common ancestry with the Vulcans or the Romulans, but they're, it's a superficial resemblance. So, okay, cool. Right. Good. So is everyone comfortable with that?
Yep.
All good. Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so Captain's log, supplemental. My senior officers and I were treated to good food and better conversation during our time with Akaru Buck Chiel. The Akaru are a kind and open people who appear to be possessed of good charm and remarkable technologies. We have noted Tilikal influence in Akaru engineering designs, though how this is possible cannot yet be determined. Perhaps our upcoming audience with the Akaru leader Uryax Nadion can provide some answers. And I will settle on a pronunciation of that at some point, so just bear with me.
Just not today.
Just not today. One day perhaps, but not today. Right, so you are all on the surface along with Naismith, and you were all given individual rooms. And as I say, the night has passed uneventfully. You meet. Perhaps you will get. I'll suggest that Naismith gets you all together in one of the rooms, because the rooms are all they're adjacent, but they're not adjoining, so they don't. You're not connected, but you're in a kind of a accommodation block with several of these very luxurious rooms. So Naismith kind of gathers you together prior to the time that you're expecting to be collected. If you remember, we finished last time where you'd been sort of woken by, a tap on the door from your host, who brought in, sort of some sort of local tea and some pastries and so on. And then you've been left to get ready, and you're expecting to be collected to continue with your meetings. So Naismith gathers you all together, and just for an informal meeting, and he advises you that he's been in contact with the Vigilant sort of this morning. Everything's nominal. There's been no sign of any other vessels. There's been, it's basically been an uneventful night. And he just checks in with you all to make sure everyone is comfortable, and has there been anything that's occurred during the night that he needs to be aware of?
Sorry, Steve, I've just thought of something.
Yes, mate, go for it.
The Ferengi appearance.
Oh, actually, thank you for reminding me. Yes, I was going to mention that. Thank you. That's perfect. Okay, so what had transpired is basically Osterhagen, in conjunction with Kalish, had done some covert scanning, and you'd basically detected. I seem to remember you'd basically detected in orbit there was some sort of ionic trail from a Ferengi Marauder. So the Ferengi Marauder is the kind of orange
it's the crescent
horseshoe crab type thing that the Ferengi tend to use. So there's been some evidence that Ferengi have at least been in orbit. Now, what's interesting about that is that as far as you know, the Akaru have not made any reference or any mention of there having been any other contact with non-Akaru. So your understanding from your interactions with the Akaru crew, and since you've been on the planet, is that there's been no other contact. But obviously, the fact that you've detected traces of a Ferengi ship in orbit fairly recently would suggest either somebody's lying, or at least the Ferengi maybe were observing, so it may not be a lie. It may be that the Akaru have not met them, but for that reason alone, Naismith was keen to have the Vigilant kind of being very, very careful about, just to make sure there was no other ships in the system. So, and I think that's kind of, we didn't really do any more with that, did we? I think that's kind of what we
No,
said.
that was that. Yeah, that covers it.
We
Perfect.
were
Okay.
trying to find out bits, trying to make some sort of connection, but we never actually established anything.
Yeah, that's quite right. Okay, so Naismith goes round. So gathered in the room, there's Naismith, there's obviously Kalish, and there's Giara, and there's Kaz, and we'll go with Osterhagen being along, although I know he's not with us. I know Digger's favourite trick is to have him kind of blink out of existence if he's not there. I think we'll just assume that he's around. So
Yeah.
if you want to use him, throw him in front of phaser fire or whatever, then that's perfectly fine. Okay. Right. Okay. So at the appointed time, you are gathered into the kind of. You leave the room and you're met by one of the. I'm going to call them acolytes, although there seems to be there's definitely a religious, monastical feel about this place. And so you're met by one of the kind of Akaru who seem to live and work here, and you're taken to the same courtyard where you met Akaru back Chiel the day before, and Akaru back Chiel is waiting for you when you arrive. And again, you're gathered in the courtyard and you're offered a light breakfast by various servers, and so you're sat down and it's all very casual, and he just asks you, how did you sleep well, and it's all very kind of trivial conversation, unless any of you have anything in particular you want to ask him. It's just a very pleasant kind of light breakfast, and again, we'd established, it seems that the dietary preferences, certainly here at least that you've seen, are predominantly vegetarian, right? So
Isn't this where this conversation come from last time with the about?
Oh God, yeah.
Oh God,
Is replicated meat
oh
vegetarian?
yeah, that's right, exactly.
Yeah, that was most of the session, wasn't it?
Yeah, we did it. We did go off on a bit of a tangent about that, which was quite entertaining. Actually,
It was a fun conversation.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening, that was last episode.
Did we come to the conclusion was we're not sure. You could. I think the conclusion was that replicated meat is not meat. I think is the sort of the conclusion we came to. But obviously you wouldn't offer replicated meat to a vegetarian because replicated meat would look like actual meat, even if it's not got any meat in it. So
it would look, taste, and for all intents and purposes, the only thing it didn't do was growing the cow.
And we also established it would have a slightly off taste because all replicated food has a slight, it's never quite as good as the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. Anyhow, the breakfast that you've been offered is very pleasant, and again, it's pastries and sort of, again, there's tea being offered around. And after a while, once Akaru back, so just to be clear, Akaru back, he's just another Akaru. It's a title rather than a. I presume Chiel is his name. I think Akaru back is obviously his title.
Okay.
And after an appropriate time has passed, and he's, you've all eaten, he says, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to follow me, we have an appointment. We will now go and I will introduce you to the Uryax Nadeon. So the what you know about this person is that the Uryax Nadeon is a kind of combination of almost religious leader, but also planetary leader. So
is that a rank? Is whatever Uryax Nadeon, is that his rank, or his rank plus name, or?
Yes.
Yeah, is that like king, or is it?
Yeah. Unclear. The way it is in context, the way it is used, they refer to him as the Uryax Nadeon. So one would suggest that sounds like the title is the Uryax called Nadeon.
Okay.
However, there's no real clarification, and if you push Chiel on the subject, he's a bit evasive about, as in it. He doesn't quite understand the question, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
He says, well, he is the Uryax Nadeon. That
I suppose it's like calling someone the divine one or something like that.
Yeah, kind of, exactly.
Yeah.
So
asking if the Dalai Lama, if that's his name, it's like, well,
yeah. Exactly, and that's actually that's a very you're both 100% right. That's a very good analogy. And he seems confused by if you attempt to make that distinction, he doesn't really understand that there's a distinction. If that makes sense, he's like, no, but he is the Uryax Nadeon.
Yes.
Apparently, we have settled on a pronunciation, by the way, so that's good.
Anyway,
okay. Okay. So, right, fine. So he gathers you all together, and you proceed through the palace, for the want of a better word, because it is a very, although there is a very religious, cathedral-like vibe to it, but this is quite a big complex. And he takes you through into another section of the palace or the complex, and as you he takes you into this area. There we go. That's not far off, Mike. Actually, certainly the first bit I would go with 100%. Yaks. Yeah, I'm not quite sure how you're going to do Nadeon as a phonetically, but we'll go with that. And basically, as you're going taken into this other section, you do notice that there's an increased smell of incense, and in fact, Kaz, you probably sneeze because you're obviously your nose is particularly sensitive, so you probably like excuse me, because it's there you go. Yeah, Nadeon. There you go. That'll do. Perfect. So you notice that it's getting kind of incensey, and you're finally brought to a pair of large ornate wooden doors. And the doors are opened, and you're led into what looks to be some sort of an audience chamber. There are wooden benches in a sort of semicircular arrangement facing what appears to be, for want of a better word, a throne. There's a raised dais at the end of this chamber with a platform on it, and on this platform there is a tall wooden throne, and sitting on the throne is an individual that you assume to be the Uryax Nadeon. Now, I'm going to show you a picture before I say anything else, just for context. So, if you would bear with me one moment.
Discord or Roll20, Steve?
What's that?
Discord or Roll20? Where's it going to be?
I'm going to put it into the Discord chat. I'm only going to use Roll20 for character
for rolls.
But
yeah. Okay, cool.
If you go to Discord, that is so. The first thing that obviously strikes you about this dude is he is clearly not an Akaru. The second thing that strikes you about this dude is he could very well be the twin brother of Assessor Tredick.
Yes. Yep.
If you remember for those of you who don't remember Assessor Tredick, he was the individual who you encountered on the Candidate 3 planet, who was charged with basically looking after the physical bodies of the Tilikal. And if you remember, he was instrumental in all of the shenanigans going on there. And this guy, although he is dressed differently, clearly,
he's the same
but
species.
he seems to be from the same species. And in fact, again, at a cursory glance, he seems to be, one would say he's a twin. Although you've never seen any other of the assessor's species to know whether they all look the same, but this guy looks exactly like Assessor Tredick.
Okay. Were we briefed at all on protocol? How we should address? How should we bow? Should we not look at him directly? Anything like that?
Good point, and absolutely not. And in fact, the Chiel, I'm going to call him Chiel because I can't be bothered to say Akaru back every time. So Chiel approaches. So he kind of obviously leads you into this chamber, and as you all spot the Uryax sitting on his throne, for want of a better word, Chiel leads you all forward. He obviously takes the lead, and he approaches, and he approaches the Uryax, but he doesn't seem what's the word I'm looking? He's not like fawning, although he's obviously deferential and respectful.
Yep.
And he says, "Sir, these are the off-worlders of which we have spoken. This is Commander Naismith," and he introduces Naismith. This is Commander Kaz. This is Commander Prox, and I believe this is Sergeant Kolish, and also Lieutenant Osterhagen. And he introduces each of you in turn. And I guess, depending on your preference, you might bow. I don't know whether the Klingons would bow necessarily. I guess, maybe a slight, a kind of a respectful nod. Yeah, exactly. But he seems the Uryax gestures you. He says, "Please sit," and he points towards that. There's as I mentioned, there's a row of sort of semicircular benches in front of his throne, and he gestures you to sit and says, "Please sit, please sit." And again, his voice, he sounds exactly the same as the assessor from what you recall.
Yep. Is there any recognition on his face? Say, for example, he was the assessor Tredic. Is he kind of like, I've seen these guys before?
Okay, good point. And I'm going to get. Why don't Kalish? Why don't you make a little roll just to let's get you to make an insight and security test for me, or jump on to roll 20.
Yeah.
Let's just see how, because your first reaction to this individual is that he does seem quite hard to read, much as the assessor was. As in, he's seems fairly implacable. But yeah, sure, go ahead and try and get a read off him. And we'll also use Osterhagen, because Osterhagen, of course, is a Vulcan, so does have
Dave,
some. Yes, Mike.
This is going to sound really creepy. I've got
creepy or crazy? Did you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The assuming Kaz has got heightened senses.
Yeah.
Smell, taste, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm assuming sort of like every species gives off different sort of like pheromones and stuff. Does this is going to sound stupid, but does he smell sort of like, does he give off the same sort of scent?
Okay, no, that's not silly at all.
Does he give off the same sort of scent as the previous one?
Okay, we'll check that in a moment. So, Karen, you've
I can't read him at all.
To be honest, all the Kalish. So Kalish's eyes, I'm sure, narrow dramatically when she has clocked this individual. You and you study him closely, his mannerisms, but as you say, you don't really get anything from him at all. You certainly do not get any indication of recognition. He seems to be open. He seems to be genuinely welcoming.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get any body language that suggests he's threatened or intimidated or worried by you. So, for what it's worth, you don't get any read off him other than to your instincts. This is not the same guy, or if it is, he's very good at hiding his reactions.
Yeah.
Right. So, Mike, why don't you give me the same insight and security?
Give us a second to just.
And I'm going to give you. You get to re-roll a d20. One of the d20s, I think, because of your special heightened senses.
Right. Okay. So
if you want to just try and do that, just do a standard. This is only like a difficulty 1 task as well. This is not
insight
difficult.
and security. Yeah.
Do insight and security, and do as I say. If you fail, I'll let you re-roll a d20.
So that's just 2 dice, yeah.
2 dice, yep.
Yep. There's no
no focuses, just a straight roll. And again, just to see whether you Okay, good. Okay, so you get 2 successes, and again, you don't need to re-roll because and you are convinced that he is the same species, but he is not the same guy.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
So again, you're as you rightly say, your Cation, sense of smell, your instincts, all of this stuff that comes from being a feline species. You definitely, there is definitely a resemblance, but this is not the same individual that you've met before.
No.
There is, however, something a little off as well, and you can't put your finger on it. But there is something that kind of doesn't seem right, but you're not sure what that is. And no matter how hard you kind of, short of going up and sniffing him, you just kind of the hairs on the back of your neck kind of prick up just a little, just a touch. Yeah. And you don't feel threatened, but you just feel there's something. Do you know what I mean? Something not quite right.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah.
In this chamber, in this palace, in this place at all, have we seen any sort of portraits, like tapestries or anything like that that depict the sorry, the name escapes
Go on, you
me.
can do it.
Hold on, let me go back to Discord and read
Yaks Nadeon.
Yes, the Yaks.
Interestingly, that's a very good question, and yes, indeed, there are.
And they all look like this guy. It's not as though he's put on an illusion and he's trying to fool the others into thinking he's one of them.
That is an absolutely excellent observation, and but you're right. Around this chamber, in particular, there are some. As you're looking around, because again, you know, you take a glance around as you come in, and there are kind of I want to say sort of heroic pictures, if you know what I mean. So, but they all seem benevolent. So, in other words, they're not portraying this individual as some sort of like warrior or you know. So it's not like Soviet propaganda art where it's all about martial strength.
It's not
kind
like,
of, it is. Yeah, you definitely
it's not
get
Putin on horseback with his shirt off, sort of thing.
No, no, not at all. But you definitely do get this religious. As I said, what you found so far is there's a very odd, or not odd, but interesting kind of homogeny between religious and political. In other words, he seems to be the leader, he's the president, whatever you want to call him, but there also seems to be this religious element to him as well. And these pictures definitely lean more towards that. So you can see there's pictures of the Yaks with his arms stretched out benevolently with sort of starlight behind him, and there's pictures of him kind of with his arms spread wide and crops in the fields, and grateful Akaru kind of looking up at him lovingly and all this kind of stuff, and these pictures they also don't look new, I should say. So they look old. You're not exactly sure how old, but they certainly, this place has obviously been here for some time. And yes, you're absolutely right. The imagery, given that it is artistic, it's not photographs, it's art. But it is the art definitely looks like this guy.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, Giara, have you got anything that you want to just check before we move ahead?
I can't really think of anything. I'd be interested to know if there's any way that we can find out how long he's actually been in this position.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
What you might want to actually look into is what's the myths behind the guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's it. Are we going to confront this guy, or are we going to wait till later and ask about him?
Sorry.
That's all I was going to say was I guess you can see how because he's right there, and basically, one other thing, Kalish, you also get a kind of an odd feeling about this guy, and you don't know whether it's instinct or you don't know whether it's something else, but you kind of get a feeling of almost recognition. But it's a feeling, it's not because you have seen the assessor, you encountered the assessor before, but there's some other sort of deep-seated recognition almost in your kind of subconscious that's putting you a bit off your ease, if that makes sense. It's hard to describe, but you're kind of.
No, I think I get you. There's a feeling of familiarity there,
yeah, exactly.
but I can't quite place it.
Yeah, I mean, you're sure you've never met the Yaks Nadeon before because you've never been to this planet.
Yeah.
And given also, the kind of revelation that he looks like the assessor, and again, you're all pretty. Again, although you obviously haven't had a chance to compare notes with Kaz, again, you don't think this is the same guy because again, your instincts are fairly, highly tuned, and you don't get the feeling it's the same guy. But again, as you say, there is definitely a feeling of familiarity about him. or
Okay.
something just not quite sitting well with you. Now, Naismith on the other hand, kind of glances at you, Kalish, and he just gives a very slight shake of his head. You get the feeling that he's tried to he's kind of tried to telepathically read this guy.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because again, he's in
Do you mean Osterhagen?
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
That guy,
Yes.
the one who's not here.
Yeah.
I'll call him whatever I like. He's not here.
I was going to say, Naismith has got some powers I didn't know
Yeah,
about.
no, Naismith he's turned into Gary Mitchell. He's got silver eyes now and all sorts. He's no, you're right. Sorry, yeah, Osterhagen gives you that look that you've kind of seen before, and you know that he's tried to discreetly scan it. I mean, I say scan him. I mean, Vulcans are not like, they're not Professor X or whatever. But obviously, being a telepath, he has some, he has sort of inherent, it's empathic abilities. So, and he just gives you a little shake, which means he's not getting a read off him at all.
Yeah.
So, and that just means that Osterhagen has tried to, see if there's anything there, but he's not getting anything from him. So Naismith, anyway, steps forward. So obviously, all this has gone on in that brief, in that brief section when he was in, kind of getting to sit down, and you've all kind of individually done your thing. So Naismith, obviously gestures you to sit down, and he says, on behalf of the United Federation of Planets, I'd like to formally greet you. We hope that that your people and our people can form a productive friendship, and hopefully, perhaps enter into a more formal relationship for the benefit of all. As I've discussed with Arubak Chiel, the Federation is a collection of planets. We band together for mutual cooperation and mutual benefit, and provide mutual defense and assistance. And we would certainly be interested in, if that would be something that we could offer to you in due course. And he goes through his, first contact speech, basically, that he has to go through. And the Uryak seem. Sorry, go on.
No, sorry to interrupt. I'm sort of like watching the Uryaks very. I mean, I'm not staring at him, but I'm keeping a very close eye on him. Does there appear to be any to see whether there's any signs of recognition on his part?
Okay.
See whether because
you certainly can do that. And
theoretically, if this is the first time he's met us, if he recognises, then it's. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, no. Again, as we said with Kalish, you watch him closely, and you don't really, because again, obviously you've succeeded at your insight and security. So I'm happy to say that we'll filter that over. So you're keeping a close eye on him, but again, all of his reactions seem to be, he doesn't seem to recognise you, and you don't get an impression from him that he's lying, if that makes sense.
Right.
He could just be a very good liar, but you certainly doesn't react, and he's certainly not behaving. Because if you remember, the assessor was quite manic. Actually, he was quite quite frantic because of the situation he was in. This guy is much calmer, much more in control, and you get the impression that he's, he is definitely in charge here.
Steve,
but he having said that, he welcomes you. He says, "I thank you, Commander." For your kind words and wise words. My children have only just begun to venture out into the universe, and I am certainly grateful to you and your crew for assisting them in their hour of need and returning them safely to us. Rest assured that our efforts at expanding out into the universe and exploring and gaining knowledge will not be impeded by this unfortunate occurrence. For surely risk is at the heart of exploration. Do you not agree? And Nathan says, "Oh, of course, yes." And
Naismith goes, I agree things. Risk is our business.
there you go, TM. And he then he says, "If I may, Commander, forgive me for my curiosity. May I ask? So, firstly, Commander, where is it that you are? Where is your place of origin?" And Naismith says, "Well, I'm from a planet called." Did we? Quick timeout. I don't remember. I may have to retcon this because I don't remember whether we ever established.
I think.
Sorry,
go on.
It's all right. No, go on. If you can just humour me for a moment, I'm actually going to go to the. I should just look this up because I'm sure
it'd be on the character sheet, wouldn't it?
I'm just going to look at it right now. Yeah, I feel I should probably have prepared this in advance. So nothing like a bit of preparation. But if I just go back and check the character sheet to see where he comes from, it's not really that important. But basically, the Uryax is trying. He's obviously asking about where your origin. So what I'll do is I'll dig up the. I'll get the character sheets handy just for the sake of argument, so that we can keep it within canon. Because God forbid that we veer from canon. That would not be good.
Our fans will be sending us angry emails.
I hate that. I really hate that. There's no need, is there? Honestly.
Steve,
right, okay.
You've said in the past that we can do with Naismith as we please.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you deliver a line for me through Naismith?
Yeah, please. Yeah, go on.
I'd like him to say something along the lines of, "We have prepared a gift for you, but being that we don't know your culture and customs, it is aboard our ship, and we were wondering whether or not you would like a gift of knowledge or a gift of gold-pressed latinum."
Okay.
Fine.
Just wondering on the reaction that.
Okay, so so Naismith delivers. I won't repeat it, but yes, Naismith delivers that line. And the Uryax is so. The Uryax is. He seems. What's the word I'm going to? I think he seems sort of almost amused. You definitely detect a slight smile crosses his face. He says, "Well, I'm afraid I have no knowledge of. I do not know of this latinum of which you speak. However, knowledge is always to be treasured. So certainly, we are all seekers in knowledge, are we not?"
Okay.
And for
so he's not a Ferengi in disguise, then that's fine.
latinum, oh man. It doesn't appear to be. If he is, he's a bloody good disguise. Because he's about 9 foot tall and he hasn't got big lobes.
Yeah, but it's actually two Ferengi standing on each other's shoulders.
Exactly.
Is he wearing a big coat? Is it like a trench coat?
Is that like how Obi-Wan Kenobi got Princess Leia out of that Imperial base where it's hidden under its coat? Don't get me started on that. Anyway, diverting. Okay, so he says to Naismith, where is your point of origin? So according to the character sheet, Naismith, it says his upbringing was business or trade, and there's Sean didn't specify an environment. So I'm just going to say, he says, I'm, and on the subject of knowledge, my place of birth was in fact on a human colony called Rigel 3. My parents, in fact, were traders and businessmen. They, much. So that's what that is where I am from. And he then turns to Kaz and he says, "So you are obviously not of the same species as your commander. So where is it? Where is your point of origin?"
I come from a planet called Kate, and we, as I said, we are a different species to the what's it, but we are all part to my colleagues here, some of my colleagues anyway, and as I say, we are all part of the Federation.
Indeed. And you, Commander, and he looks at Kiara. He says, again, I detect that you are also from a different species. And in fact, I sense there is more to you than meets the eye, is there not? I sense two consciousnesses within your being.
This is true. I'm of a species called Trill, and I come.
Right.
Pardon?
Yep.
Thought somebody else said something.
Interesting.
I'm from the.
That's right. Go on. Carry on.
My species and my planet are both called Trill. And in fact, I am a host, and the second consciousness that you can detect is my symbiote, who's called Prux.
Fascinating. And you, Sergeant, you are clearly again from a different species.
Yes, I am Klingon, the proud warrior race.
Indeed, fascinating. And you, Lieutenant, and he looks at Osterhagen, who again says, "I am a species known as Vulcan." And again, we are all, again, as you can see, all of our species, although different, and with some of us with different beliefs and different attitudes, but we all coexist within the framework of Starfleet and the Federation.
We all share the same ideals. Well, some of us do anyway. Sort of like
Interesting.
A need to explore and encounter new civilizations such as yours.
Fascinating.
Olish would like to speak up and say, and where is it you are from?
Oh, I am from here. I am from my planet. I am from Akaru, or from Setu. I am of the Akaru, and the Akaru are of me. And I have existed here for as long as I have existed.
If I'm going, I can't say a thing, but what I'm trying to get across is, you are not the same. You are different from the other peoples on the planet.
You are indeed perceptive. I am indeed the Uryax Nadeon. I am the Akaru are of me, and I am of the Akaru, but I am not Akaru. I am simply the Uryax.
Are there more like you on this planet?
Indeed not. I am the only. Hence my title and my name. I am the Uryax Nadeon.
Would it surprise you to hear that we have encountered your species before?
Oh, he's going there. Oh, he's going there. Kalish throws the hand grenade. He pauses. No doubt about it. When you throw this at him, and he says, "That cannot be, for I am the Uryax Nadeon. I am of this planet, and I have been of this planet for my existence. I am the Uryax Nadeon. I do not know how else to describe it."
My mistake. You must understand. We have travelled and met many a race, and some are very similar to others in many ways. It must just be a coincidence.
Quite. And now, Kaz, you are obviously, you said you were closely watching this guy, right?
Yes.
And you definitely clock a look between the Uryax Nadeon and Chiel. Only a brief, there's hardly anything there, but it's just an acknowledgement that statement has, perhaps I wouldn't say rattled him, but
yeah,
there's definitely a glance. He looks very brave. His eyes flick to the other guy, and the other guy obviously is watching him very intently. But with that, the Uryax continues. He then seems to be just essentially carries on. He kind of, Kalish has obviously, thrown him a little bit, but not enough that you would notice unless you were watching him so very closely.
Yeah.
And he continues to ask questions about your home planet and
What's it here? He goes, Naismith has offered him a gift.
Yeah.
A gift of, and he basically is sort of like a gift of knowledge.
Yeah.
Basically, what we could do is like series of sort of like a data package of about the species of the Federation? Like, so
Yeah, you could do that.
okay,
Quite, yeah, absolutely.
without giving, or like, you know, these guys come from Klingon, but we're not going to tell you where Klinzai is. You know, these are humans.
Nice.
They come from Earth.
Mike's betraying his Starfleet Battles origins there when he says Klinzai.
Klinzai didn't that come from?
Is that Starfleet Battles or is that FASA? I can't remember. One of the two.
That was FASA, but that came from
Final Reflection.
That's the one. Yeah, they're the ones that first come up with it, and everybody started copying it. It was, yeah. That's. Do you know what I mean? Basically, just give them a
that's a good idea.
A sanitized data pack on all of the races of the Federation. So
in fact, we'll assume. In fact, actually, what we can assume here, I think we can probably assume that that's probably standard.
Yeah.
Operating procedure. So Naismith says, with your permission, so Naismith again, having obviously with Kalish's kind of question and very good retreat, very diplomatic.
That was after Naismith kicked me in the leg after I said that. It's like,
You feel the point of a dagger in your. What are you doing? So basically, Naismith says, if I may, and if I may, because again he's struggling over the lack of a title for this because the Uryaks and the Daon is a bit of a mouthful. He says, if I may, sir, he settles on sir. We have prepared information on our, as promised, as we discussed. We have a gift of knowledge for you. We have information on the Federation, and it's basically a pamphlet, right? It's a glossy pamphlet, but essentially he says, if with your permission, and the Uryaks and the Daon says, indeed, proceed. And Naismith sort of taps his comm badge and he says, Naismith Vigilant here. Please transport down the orientation package to my location. And within about 30 seconds, there's you hear the transporter beam, and essentially a pad is transported down.
Question: how does the Uryaks respond to the transport beam?
He seems interested, but you get the impression that he's been quite well briefed by both the captain of the ship and also so it was Captain I've got the name written down here. Captain Commander Mouty, wasn't it? Was the captain of the ship, and you get the impression he's been briefed by both Commander Mouty as well as Chiel in some detail. And if you remember, you did actually demonstrate the transporter on the ship. So,
sorry, Sarah Jane. They don't have transporter technology.
Right, okay.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Yes, Karen. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. You're right. Yes, indeed. So when you were on the ship, Sarah Jane, you were kind of you and your team were. I think initially we used the runabout to get you onto the ship, but then I think it was decided that because you had to transport parts backwards and forwards. I think you just ended up using the transporter. So, you get the impression that this guy's been briefed, and he doesn't seem surprised to see the transporter.
Right. Okay.
Cool. So he gladly accepts the pad, and Naismith says, "If I may," and he, obviously this society is relative. I mean, they're not as high tech as the Federation, but he seems quite comfortable with a computer interface, and he says, I see, and fascinating, and he sort of hands it off to Chiel and says, thank you, Commander, this is indeed a good starting point for our for the relationship between our two planets, or our planet and your Federation. I am heartened to see that you prize knowledge. Certainly for myself, I am indeed grateful that the Akaru are able to finally explore beyond the boundaries of this planet, and to learn more about what lies out there in the universe for them. For this is indeed my greatest wish, is for them to to expand beyond their origins. And I feel that there is indeed positive indications that perhaps we can come to a good arrangement between our peoples. One moment, and he sort of claps his hands, and literally within 10 seconds, these serving robots that you saw before kind of come drifting into the room, and they've got refreshments, and these guys seem to be determined to probably feed you to death if nothing else.
Nothing wrong
So
with
these
that.
little serving robots turn up with mugs of the tea that you had before, and again a selection of food. She says, "Please take refreshment. I need to consult with Akaru Bak Chel for a moment on a matter of state." And he withdraws, or rather, Chel kind of goes over to the throne, and he kind of leans into the Yaks and Adeon, and they have a kind of a quiet conversation that you can't quite overhear. Even Naismith is, with his Vulcan hearing, isn't quite able to catch it.
Osterhagen.
I said it again, didn't I? Osterhagen.
Don't
worry, I'll just edit it. It's fine.
I've got a good hearing. Any chance?
Yeah, same again, because you're not quite, because you are. I mean, not like miles away, but you're not. You're I don't know, sort of 20 feet away from them, and they're they're talking very quietly. So, and they only talk for a moment, and then Chell kind of withdraws back to his place to one side, and you don't really get any indication of what is being discussed. And once you've had again, assuming you probably politely take a pastry or something to eat, or even if it's just you take a sip of tea, and then he proceeds again. Again continues to sort of talk in broad terms about the future, and is interested in what the process is to join the Federation, and again in very broad terms. He seems interested but not fascinated, if you see what I mean. He's kind of he's asking questions, but he's like, no. And so how does one go about, how do we go about joining the Federation? And so then Naismith says, well, we normally there would be obviously some negotiations between our two governments. We would also have observers from the Federation would ensure that certain technological requirements are met, and we would be willing, also able to assist you in certain areas. And it is a conversation that will be had over some time. But if all
there's
goes
an egg
well,
and spoon race.
Egg and spoon race, pin the tail on the donkey, all that kind of thing. And it says, assuming both parties agree, then Akaru would be offered membership in the Federation. Certainly, initially, we could discuss matters of trade and information sharing. Perhaps one day, even some of your ship's crews could also enlist in Starfleet and serve on Federation vessels. There are certainly many possibilities, and Naismith and him are talking about this. So while this is going on, is there anything else any of you guys, before we move on, is there anything else you guys want to kind of look at or talk about before we proceed?
No, well, I'm okay. I think we're okay.
No, I think in that brief moment where they were conversing and we had a moment to ourselves, I think Naismith would remind Kolish that to leave the diplomacy to him.
I don't know. I think she handled that pretty well, to be fair.
It was a warm phaser, wasn't it?
I beg your pardon?
So diplomacy, the best way to handle diplomacy is with a warm phaser bank.
Okay, right. So, so this is continuing. So Naismith and the Yaks are again still conversing, and you probably he again asks questions, and he again he's interested. He does also seems keen to get reassurance that the Federation will not militarily take over Setu. So he, on several occasions refers to this, and this is, and Naismith is, well, of course, we are. This is purely meant to be a mutually beneficial arrangement. It is totally up to you. If the Akaru, if the Akaru and yourself, if you do not wish the Akaru to join the Federation, then of course that is your decision, and we will not attempt to convince you otherwise. We would hope that you would see the benefit of such an alliance. And anyway, while this is going on, all of a sudden, Naismith's communicator goes off, and Naismith is like, he looks a bit annoyed, but you can hear the Vigilant to Naismith, urgent. Commander, I need to speak to you, preferably in private. And at the same time, you notice that Chiel has he's got a data pad, or a primitive looking data pad, and he also approaches the Ajax and says, "Sir, if I may." And Naismith says, "That's fine. I need to consult with my ship. Just excuse me for a moment." And he steps off to one side, and he sort of gestures you to follow him. And you notice that the Ajax and Chiel are both having a conversation. And Naismith says, "Okay, go ahead, Vigilant. We're out of earshot of the Akaru. What's the situation?" And the ship tells you that they've just detected a sudden subspace burst of tetrion particles and EM radiation near the planet, and the energy seemed to have been directed at one of Setu's oceans. They're still taking readings, and they're still investigating. And they say that they're also receiving comm traffic from Starfleet, indicating that there's been several other incidents very similar scattered around the Alpha and Beta quadrants as well. Obviously, these reports are just coming in kind of live, so they haven't had time to assess it. But obviously, this is something that Naismith needs to be aware of. And you notice that the Ajax and Chiel are kind of again having a conversation, and you suspect that Chiel is probably telling the Ajax and the Daon exactly the same thing. And such that the Ajax says, "Commander, you must excuse me. There is something I need to attend to. We will talk again soon." And he kind of withdraws. He literally, gets down from the throne and leaves the chamber with Chiel in tow. So, what is it you would like to do at this point?
Should we return to the Vigilant, or can we handle it from where we are? Do we think?
Well, the first thing to do is I'm gonna have a nose around the throne room.
Okay, you can do that.
Sort of like trying to read, because you say there's like portraits and portraits and I guess sort of like tapestries and other bits and other things. I'm just going to go around and have a look, see whether there's anything that rings a bell.
Sure. Okay, you can do that. So we'll come back to you in a moment. So you go off and have a little nose around. So again, you've been left in this in the throne room, for want of a better word. There is one Akaru one of the acolytes, and again, I'm going to use that word. It might not be the right word, but I don't want to use the word monk. But it's like one of the Akaru is kind of keeping a respectful distance, so it doesn't appear to be kind of eavesdropping.
All right. Okay.
But as you suspect, has probably been no, that's fine. You suspect he's probably just been left there in case you need anything.
And now,
and he's just standing quietly, and he does not interfere. If you start looking at the pictures,
all right, okay.
He does not interrupt you. He's not. Doesn't seem interested. He's just, I think, been left there in case you need anything.
Okay.
And Kaz can do it as like just a curious looking around, right?
Of course, absolutely. And I mean, you're not doing anything. I'm presuming. Are you going to use a tricorder, or are you just looking?
Surreptitiously, I'm going to just try and sort of like turn the volume down on it so it doesn't make the
Okay, so I'm going to get you to make. I'm going to see whether you can do it stealthily, or whether he's going to find you.
While he's doing that, can I talk to the Akaru that's been left behind?
You certainly can, absolutely. Yeah, you can certainly do that.
Distraction.
Partly distraction.
Yeah, good thinking.
But,
you can do that.
Also to see if he can give us any more information about the Ajax and the Daon.
There you go.
Nicely done.
You want to see
100 XP.
I feel like I should be giving you a prize or something every time you get this. Do you know what I mean? I wish I could get my hands on the guy who wrote this, because that's seriously that name is not it's not working for me at all. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, perfect. So right, what we'll do first then is, why don't we handle? We'll get Giara can talk to the guy first and see whether. Then we'll get Kaz to do a test to see whether you can
if you can
avoid, take advantage of it, if that makes sense.
if you can try and get myths and stuff surrounding the Oryaks, other than sort of like, do you know what I mean? So if you
Yeah, that's cool.
see what the myths and, I hate to use say legends, but if this guy's been around for as long as he says he's been around, there's gonna be talk about. Do you know what I mean? I'm glad someone does.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. You can absolutely do that. Okay, so Giara, let's cover what you're doing first. So, so Naismith is engaged in conversation with the ship, and I'm going to assume Kalish is probably eavesdropping, because it could be a security matter.
Yes.
And just to summarise, what the Vigilant tell you is that. So, as I say, that there's a subspace Tetrion burst which has been detected, and it appears to have been a directed bit. It seems to have sort of appeared out of nowhere near the planet. So again, similar to some of the phenomenon that you've encountered or come across before. And in this instance, it, as I say, seems to have been detected to one of the oceans. And again, they're getting comm traffic coming in from Narendra Station, and just saying, this seems to have happened in other places as well. And they're basically analysing the readings from this Tetrion burst, and they believe there's some sort of a message embedded within it. And they're currently just working on extracting that. So that'll keep him occupied for a bit.
Okay.
So meanwhile, Giara kind of you head for this guy, and as you approach, so he again is a male Akaru, shorter in stature than Giara, because Giara's quite tall, I seem to remember. And he's very respectful. He's wearing plain clothing, robes basically. And as you approach, he kind of nods respectfully and says, "Honoured guest, may I assist you with something?"
Yes, I'm absolutely fascinated, and I just wondered if you can tell me anything about the history of the Uryaks Nadeon. Where did he? How long has he been here for?
The Uryaks has been here for as long as time has been recorded. Certainly, as long as any of us can recall. Our record, we have records going back. We have records in our archives which go back several millennia, which mention the Uryaks by name. Indeed, he has been here for as long as our collective memory exists.
Did he create this place?
I assume that you have been told that that our leader, the Uryaks, is responsible for selecting the Akaru who administer his law. Minister Chell is one of the Akaru Buck. There are 300 of these governors who deliver the Uryaks' will across the planet. And as I say, the Uryaks, he is unaging. We refer to him as the ageless one. He has been here for as long as any of us can remember.
Wow. And how long have the rest of you been here? Did he create you? Or?
We do not. We do not believe so. We believe that. We believe that he is our benefactor, and he is here to. That he is here to guide us, and was sent to us to ensure the survival of the Akaru, and to ensure that we prosper and that we survive. He is responsible for guiding us through difficult times, and certainly our recorded history, which goes back some thousands of years. Again, the Uryaks has always been present, and beyond that, we are not sure. But we do not question his presence. We do not question his benevolence. For it is undeniable that the Uryaks' will is the will of the people, and that the will of the people is in accord with the Uryaks. So he's kind of going around in circles here with you a little bit. You get you get the impression that certainly recorded history for them, which goes back, which clearly goes back several thousand years, and as he's indicating that he's in their he's in their legends, in their records for thousands of years at least. Now, as to their origins, they're not suggesting that the Uryaks created them, merely that he's been here guiding them. And again, you would assume he's probably, he's been here since the Uryaks, since the Akaru were a much more primitive people. Obviously, given the way technology develops and given their current stage of kind of technological level is kind of, in Earth terms, is like mid 21st century, because so Zephram Cochrane invented the warp drive in 2163. So yeah, given that there's no indication of kind of global conflict, if you remember when you spoke to you won't remember, Sarah Jane, but when the others spoke to the captain of the ship, the impression you got was that there had not been global conflict amongst the Akaru for recorded history, as long as anyone can remember. However, there has been regional, there's been regional disputes, and as this guy has mentioned, the planet has like 300 regional governors who are all appointed by the Uryaks and the Daon, and historically there were, disagreements over territory and disagreements over resources and whatever. So there were kind of local conflicts, but this planet hasn't had a global war. So it's safe to assume that technology-wise, they're probably round about where mid 21st century, if on Earth in the Star Trek universe there hadn't been, World War III. So warp drive has been invented probably 50 years ahead. So if you think back several thousand years of Earth history, so we're talking, Iron Age kind of stuff. You're going back, back. If you use our, so you're going back pre-Egyptian civilization and further back than that. So
it just sort of like occurred to me that this guy the Uryaks is basically doing the same sort of job that Assessor Tredick was doing, because he was sort of like looking after the civilization.
Well, yeah.
As I say,
not an unfair comparison.
You have the sort of like he was guarding the Tilakal.
Yeah.
As you say, he was guarding the bodies, and maybe he was guiding them as well. And maybe that's what this guy is doing here. Maybe it's sort of like
it's certainly possible. Again, you don't really have enough. Yes, you are right. The assessor was a protector. He was a guardian, and this guy, everything you've heard about this guy is a similar role.
Maybe he's related in some way to the preservers.
Possibly. Do you want to explain what the preservers are for those not in the know?
The preservers are basically a reason, the way they're used to explain that everybody looks the same in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Basically,
Didn't they plant the seeds of evolution in different places?
and everybody's based from the same genetic stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, that's why
Yeah.
Klingons, Romulans, Ferengi, Ferengi, sort of like all the species that you can think of, basically all look the same.
All humanoid-like, aren't they?
That's exactly the words I was looking for. They're all humanoid-like, but we're just sort of like makeup of the week sort of thing applied. That's the reason why.
Exactly right. Yeah, that was a clever way of explaining why they all look like they've got silly noses stuck on. Okay, yeah. So that's I mean, a good observation. So right, Giara, is there anything else you want to ask this guy? Because he's given you his, you get the feeling it's the kind of company line, but also he seems genuinely in awe of the Yaks as well. But again, the relationship is odd because, as we said, it's not quite, because in some ways this guy is like a living god. So it's like, okay, so that's in some ways looking at their mythology or their legends and the way they talk about this guy. On the one hand, he's like a deity, but on the other hand, he's a physical being who's walking around and he's you've talked to him, and he interacts with people, and he's simply seems that he's been here for he's very long lived. But again, so it's a kind of an odd balance, as I said, between a political figure. So he's like the president, the world president, but he's also kind of head of a religion or the subject of a religion. So
sounds like North Korea to me, Steve.
Say again.
Sounds like North Korea to me.
Yeah, a little bit. That's not a bad.
Well, it would be interesting to know if he's abusing his power, but that's not something you can get from the people because they will be not necessarily brainwashed, but they'll be,
It's the term gaslit.
No, but I'd like to ask, and in return for all that he does for you, what can you do for him?
Yeah. Well, we strive to better ourselves. We strive to fulfill his wishes and to do all that he asks of us. But all that he asks of us is that we better ourselves and that our society flourishes and survives. You have seen, indeed, have you not, the first of our mighty star vessels that the Uryaks has guided us in the creation of, and he, through his benevolence, through his guidance, we have met yourselves, and here I am speaking to someone from another planet, from another solar system, and this would not be possible without his guidance. So all we do to honor him and to honor his will. He asks nothing in return from us other than that we do our best and that we strive to do better.
Okay, I just like to thank him for spending time telling me about their history.
Cool. And he seems genuinely, to be fair, he seems genuinely pleased that you're interested enough to ask, because again, you've taken the time to have a conversation with him about it, and you're not judging, you're just asking him to tell you about it. So he's kind of, right, Mike, the good news is then, so he's quite distracted.
Yeah.
So why don't you make I want you to make now you've got a point of momentum actually still.
Watch, I'll completely fluff this up.
Well, just make a dice roll. So if you want to do, I would do again insight and
hang on a minute,
probably science, I guess, using a tricorder. You could use security. Depends how you want to approach it. If you want to try and be overly covert, then you probably want to use. You'd probably want to use maybe daring and security if you wanted to be particularly covert about it.
I'll use daring because that's higher. And
yeah, that's fine. You can do that because again, you're actually making an effort to be covert, right?
Yeah. So
cool.
Can I?
Yeah. So go with that.
Go with it. Is this just is this for the scanning or is this for the remain covert?
Well, this is the whole thing because you're trying to scan, but you're trying to do it covertly.
Okay. Can I use the momentum?
Point of momentum. Yes, you can.
I'll add another dice.
So roll 3 dice for that.
Let's see if I've got any.
I don't think you've got any focuses that would apply. So, and as I say, I'm gonna as long as you get one success, then he doesn't notice you doing it. He's too busy talking to Giara.
You watch triple zeros.
Don't.
Ooh,
That's
what-
not so
my
bad. You've
God.
got two successes there. There you go. Fine. So you kind of wander around the room, go to the nearest tapestry or image, and you can sort of covert or discreetly pull your tricorder out, and as you say, you've got it muted. So what is it you're looking for?
Basically, I want to record all the bits, but just to see whether there's anything that. It's set on to record, so it'll record all the images and stuff.
Okay, so you want to take a visual record of the
More or less,
of the
yeah. But
tapestry.
also,
Okay, that's fine. You can do that.
Also, I'm looking for see whether there's any see whether there's any pictures or paintings of him, sort of like the Carly technology in the background, or
Okay, that's fine.
Something
Yeah, that's fine. You can do
something
that.
that's out of place that doesn't fit on this planet.
Okay. So you go around the room. So again, Giara's conversation with this chap it certainly occupies him for a few minutes, and obviously, meanwhile, Naismith and Kalish are kind of in conversation with the ship while they're analysing the this event. So you and Osterhagen is just kind of milling around. He's sort of looking at the throne because the throne is quite ornately carved. It seems to be made from wood. And he's kind of Osterhagen is just sort of looking at that and looking for DNA to sample, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you think he'd go so far as to take a swab off the chair? He's like, oh, no one's looking. I'll just take a little swab. I'll leave that up.
There's no doubt he would do that.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah, of course he would.
If he's noticed that Yara has attracted the guy. Of course, that's got to be. Is there a roll that he could make to see whether he then?
I'm not even going to bother because again, the acolyte is quite animatedly talking to Giara. So yeah, he can certainly. And Osterhagen's practiced at this, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he'll no doubt just go over and quickly sort of, whip out a like a cotton bud.
Cotton bud.
It'd be more technological than a cotton bud, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, a test tube. What's it? A swab.
Yeah, he'll discreetly try and take a swab from the chair. Okay, so you were able to basically circle the room, and you're looking, interestedly at these images, and you can discreetly record. You can record most of them. Obviously, there's a couple which would be right in this guy's eye line, so you probably would avoid those purely because although he is distracted, if you sort of literally stand in front of him, he's going to notice you scanning them. So.
Yeah.
And on the images, as you're looking at them, and as I said, most of them are kind of fairly. They're obviously meant to be inspiring, but they're fairly generic. So,
yeah.
But you do actually notice that on one of the images where where he, God, I've forgotten his bloody name now. The Uryax Nadeon is standing again with sort of arms outspread. You do notice in the very background of the image there is something that looks like it could possibly be similar structures to that which you saw on the Candidate 3 world.
Okay.
But it's very, very. You'd probably have to. Again, you've got recording, so you could probably analyze it. And again, the foreground image of the picture is very much looks like Setu. So it's the architect. There's a couple of buildings in the foreground which look very much like buildings that you've seen on your time here. But just in the background, there's a hint of it. You're not 100% sure, but it looks, it could very well be. So you can analyze that at a later time because you've taken images of everything.
Yeah.
But other than that, as I say, they're all meant to be inspiring, but pretty generic. Him pointing to the stars, him sort of distributing food to the people, him standing over kind of blacksmiths working in toiling in the forges and all that kind of thing. So it does kind of look Eastern European, that kind of feel, but it's not. You don't get the impression that it's not military. It's not a dictatorship. He's not he's benevolent, not despotic, if that makes sense. Anyhow, right, good. So, right. Meanwhile, back at so Naismith and Kalish. So, right, the ship have spent a couple of minutes kind of analysing, and the duty science officer, who I should really tell. I've gone to all this trouble of making all these character names up, so I should probably. Okay, so it's Ensign Ross is in charge at the moment, and he's reporting back to you on the message that has been detected within the subspace burst. Okay, what he tells you is okay. So they can relay this to you via your tricorder, and if you all presumably you sort of gather round to watch it, you see an image of a masculine looking. There's an image of what looks like a masculine face. It definitely seems to be a man. But the most notable feature of this face is the wide blue eyes, which seem to lack a pupil or an iris. And these remind you very much of the eyes of Ash Tamalia, who was the Tilikal sort of avatar that you encountered.
Yep.
And you can see in the background behind, although this image is very distorted and very staticky, you can see colours kind of flowing around behind them, and this doesn't look to you the same as the pocket universe that you visited. You know, the dimension that you visited.
Yeah.
This looks to be very different. And as you're watching, you can see that the figure's mouth is moving, and the static clears briefly, and you hear the fragment of a message. And he says, and again, his voice is definitely masculine, but it's quite soft. And he says, "We are here because we desire it. Do not let the others," and then there's static again, "into releasing, please." And then there's static again. "If you can hear my words, turn back." And then the message kind of breaks up into a mix of color, and the science officer just replays the message, and he says, "That's the best we could do with it, sir. I've been in contact with Narendra, and they've their systems can't pull any more out of the message than that. We'll continue to analyze it, though, sir. I don't know if there's anything else I can tell you at the moment." And Kalish, again, you get this odd feeling that you've had this feeling before recently, and you seem to be convinced that this message has not come from the same dimension that you visited before. And you don't know why you're so certain of this, but you with absolute certainty know that this is not the same pocket dimension that you visited with the Vigilant.
Okay, is it like a deja vu feeling?
It kind of is. It's almost like there's a voice kind of whispering in your ear, to the point perhaps that you might even kind of, it's kind of like someone's walked over your grave. Do you know what I mean? And as you say, it's a bit deja vu, but you just get this. You have this certainty, and Kalish has this certainty that. And again, I don't know whether you want her to voice this certainty to Naismith, who is again kind of digesting this information, but you are certainly convinced that this message is not from Ash Tamalia or any of the Tilikal that you encountered in that dimension. This seems to be coming from somewhere different.
Steve.
Yeah.
These this feeling that, as I say, he's getting. Is it that Kalish is getting? Is it anything? Does it feel? Do you remember we were all zoning out when we were in the other dimension? We were all getting.
Yep.
We're all having things. Has it got that same ethereal feel to it as when we were zoning out there? Does that make sense?
I mean, it does. I mean, you'd have to obviously. If you, this answer depends on a couple of factors, really. So. Yeah. Firstly, does Kalish share this information with you? Yeah. Is the first question.
So,
which the answer is?
I don't think she can verbalize it. So I don't think she does, because she's not going to try and trip over her words and seem incompetent. So until she can get a better handle on it, she's not hiding anything. She just can't
Got it.
verbalize what she's feeling.
That kind of jibes with my feeling. But to your point, Mike,
Yeah.
what I'll say is that, again, given that you've raised that, Kalish has kind of
Bearing in mind,
Kalish is trying to make sense of it. And let's just say that this feels different somehow. This doesn't feel like
Okay.
the same. As I say, this is almost like her. This is almost like her inner dialogue, right? It's like her id, her subconscious talking to her. So it's almost like the voice in your head. Do you know what I mean? As in, but as I say, this is something she just is absolutely convinced about. But as you say, it's very hard for her to vocalize.
She may go as far as saying, this doesn't feel right. Something feels off.
Exactly.
She'll verbalize that much, I think, but no more than that.
And she probably won't also make herself vulnerable.
Yeah.
By suggesting that she's suffering from mental problems or anything like that. That would definitely not happen.
Yeah.
So as you say, I think until she can make sense of it, she probably wouldn't communicate that even to Naismith.
Because you also said
I
that
would
I wasn't
suggest.
feeling comfortable with it as well. Kaz wasn't feeling comfortable.
No, okay. So your perception is different because but that was based on physiological.
Yeah.
Because again, Caitians have got a first of all, you have heightened senses in terms of literally you've got better hearing, you've got better sense of smell, you've got better eyesight. So your physical senses are heightened. And your sense of wrongness was more to do with the scent of so this has got nothing to do with the message or anything like that. You don't get any Kaz doesn't get any reaction to that at all. I mean, other than it's interesting, but you're not like, oh. Your reaction was purely to the Uryaks and his physicality, because you, as I say, your senses are physical based. They're they are you something just smelt off, which sound I'm not saying he smelt bad. I'm just saying that the combination of your physical senses suggests to you that there's something not quite right about him. But it's as I say, it's equally hard for you to put that into words to a non-Caitian, because again, that's your experience, but others don't share that.
I've got a plane of level plan.
A point of reference.
That's what I was looking for.
Okay, cool. Right, so that's the message that you've heard. So Naismith calls. So he consults with you. Gathers you all together and kind of relays the situation. And he says right, okay, Naismith's Vigilant, Ross here. Mr. Ross, what do you have coordinates plotted for the point for the destination of this message? You mentioned that the message seemed to have been directed into one of the planet's oceans. Have you been able to detect anything at that location? And he says, he says, do you want me to carry out a sensor scan, Commander? So Naismith says, what do we think? Should we engage with the Uryaks openly about this, or should we investigate this covertly? And he's opening that up to all of you.
Covertly, I think.
Yeah, at least for now.
What do you all think?
Yeah, I think not necessarily covertly, but we can follow our own leads right up until we need to sort of converse with them, right?
Yeah, okay.
We don't need to go to them straight away and do anything. It would be good if we had something to bring to them.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Right, do you want to transport back to the ship at this point? Because probably what I think what Naismith will do is he'll order Osterhagen to go back to the ship at least to take charge of the investigation, because if you're going to be using the sensors to try and look at this this location, he probably wants his best man on the sensors. So that means Osterhagen. So do the rest of you want to stay here, or do you want to transport back up to the ship?
I think we should go, as we've got leads to follow, I think we should go back. If we can make our sort of, a formal sort of, we're leaving, but we'll be back. We've got something to take care of. I think that's
Okay.
where we should go. What do you guys think?
Yeah, though it would be useful to have someone still down here to catch any as a representative, but I don't know.
I think Kiara's going to want to get
that's
back up
fair.
onto the ship.
No, I think.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think to be honest, I think you'll probably all transport back up because, as you say, there is a potential situation here, and obviously Naismith will want to get a handle on it because, if nothing else, the Akaru's space fleet is, it's like one ship, right? Well, it's minimal, put it that way.
Yeah.
So I guess he will feel that he wants you back on. He wants to get back to the ship. But so what he does is he says, okay, he says, Kaz, you and the rest beam back up to the ship. I'm gonna just make our excuses to Chiel, and I will join you back on the ship as soon as I can. Obviously, we don't wish to offend the Akaru by simply leaving, but I also think this needs to be investigated. So I want you to take charge back on board Vigilant, and I will be back as soon as I've spoken to Chiel. So he says, he goes over to the Acolyte and says, okay, I need you to take me to the Akaru back, please. And the guy says, yes, please follow me. And so he leads you out, leaves Naismith out. So the rest of you transport back up to the Vigilant. So you return back onto the transporter pad and you head for the bridge. Okay, so back on the bridge, how would you like to tackle this then? Oh. Yeah, how would you like to tackle this then? So Giara's just had to step away for a minute. So
Okay.
So Kaz, you're kind of in command. How would you like to manage this?
So, So there's a signal that was beamed down into one of the oceans. Yeah.
A signal originated from space, but it was similar to what happened in one of the previous sessions, where this kind of energy burst just appeared out of nowhere. So Ross reports that they've checked that location, but there's nothing there other than Tetrion residue from where the beam emanated from.
Yeah.
And yes, the beam seemed to be directed into one of the oceans, the Southern Ocean, basically.
What's the do we have any idea of the life forms that live in the ocean or not?
I mean, there are numerous. I mean, it's.
Right, okay.
Are you thinking? You're thinking it's like humpback whales? Is that what you're thinking?
That's exactly where I was thinking.
That's my first thought as well.
Not doing.
Yeah, there be whales here.
We're going to attempt to time travel.
I'm not. I mean, look. Ultimately, this. All I'll say is it's probably not. It's not really relevant.
Okay.
Let's just say that there are a vast array of life forms. I mean, it's like Earth's oceans. There's.
Let me put.
If a cursory scan reveals that their oceans are teeming with life.
Let me put.
From the microscopic up to the very large, whales and the equivalent.
Let me put it this way: it's been established that dolphins and whales are sentient in Star Trek.
Yeah, fair point. No, that's a fair point.
Is there any equivalent sentient species or in their oceans? Could that be who the signal's been aimed at?
I mean, certainly it's possible.
Yeah.
At the moment, you're going to have to do a sensor scan of the because you've got the coordinates where this beam was sent at, and you are going to have to scan the location to be able to determine whether that is the case. Okay.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I think I will roll for Kevin because again he's got the best chance of doing this right. I would argue. So I'm going to go over to roll 20 and I'll find his character sheet. So basically, he takes over the. So he takes over the science station from Ross, who is quite relieved to have had the responsibility taken away from him. So we're going to go with, I think it is I'm going to do reason and science. Would seem to be the obvious choice. And it's going to be, bear with me, to make sure I got the right. So let's see, what focuses has he got? So he doesn't actually have anything. It's interesting. He doesn't actually have anything that's related to like goes to show his interest, because he's got nothing to do with sensors. It's all to do with kind of biology, xenobiology, and genetics and so on. Surprising
I've got
that. So he
the
doesn't have a
ability
focus
to re-roll a
that's applicable.
d20 when I
Sorry,
attempt
go
a
ahead.
task assisted by the sensors.
Perfect. So in that case, then Kiara, we'll say that you're kind of standing at Osterhagen's shoulder while he's doing this, and yeah, you can
And
assist
what
him if
were we?
needed.
What
That seems
attributes and disciplines
that
were we
seems
using?
fair.
Reason and.
So we're going to go with reason
Okay.
and science, and the ship will also roll to support him because he's got because obviously he's using the ship sensor. So I'm going to roll for him first. So see what that does. I won't tell you what the target is yet, and we'll see how he gets on.
So Sarah Jane, you'll be
So
rolling
one.
one dice because you're supporting.
Correct. So you just need to roll
Okay,
one. So the ship's going to roll.
Okay.
Yeah, you go ahead and roll one because he succeeded. So you just roll one dice in support. You can. You can do that, or you can just use your talent, and I'll re-roll one dice for him. It's up to you what you prefer to do.
That's nice.
Oh, that's fine. Perfect. Well, that essentially that's what you've done. Okay, and then the ship is also going to assist. So I'm going to get the ship
I've
to
forgotten how
assist
to
as
roll your
well,
dice.
because again,
Get out
it's
there.
all right. We don't roll the dice that often, to be fair, which I'm okay with. Okay, so complication. So the ship is going to use it's going to use sensors and science to support.
Steve, we roll the dice precisely the right amount of times.
You got it. There you go.
Oh, lovely.
Cool. Right, lovely. So that's what, 4 successes I make that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that is very useful. So what happens is, Osterhagen, with Giara's support, runs a covert, well, I say covert, but he's discreet, runs a very sophisticated scan of the location. And what he detects a couple of things. So what he determines is that there seems to be a very large facility located under the ocean's surface, and it appears to be Tilikal in origin. So from the sensor readings and tying into what you've seen on Candidate 3, it seems to be an ancient, and I mean very ancient, Tilikal facility, and from his scans are only picking up very, very marginal power output, and it is clearly in a advanced state of disrepair. So it certainly does not seem to be active. It doesn't see, in other words, this almost looks like ruins under the ocean. And what he also notices, also detects, is that there is a very complex, or rather, there's a sensor net that's around this facility that seems to be a bit out of place in the middle of the ocean. And Osterhagen relates that if he hadn't been so cautious with his scan, then there is every chance that sensor net would have detected the probing, and it certainly would have alerted somebody, and one would assume that would be the Yaks and Adeon or the Akaru government.
Yeah.
Because the technology of the sensor net is not Tilikal. The sensor net is consistent with Akaru technology.
Yeah.
Whereas this facility, this base, is very, very old. But it is still outputting power, but at a very low level.
I can't remember the name of it now. But this base, would this sort of be consistent with the ruins of the base we found on
Yeah, candidate
Not
3.
candidate 3, the one previous one we found.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically consistent with
It's
the technology that you've seen with the Tilical. But as I say, this is again very, very, very old, and very ancient. I mean, thousands and thousands of years, if not much older. You can't really tell at this, this resolution and stuff. But all you know is this base is old. It is generating some power, but very minimal power, and it is surrounded by an Akaru sensor net, and it is the base which was the source of the target of the transmission.
Life signs down there.
Okay, that's a good question. So, okay, I'm going to allow. I'm going to say he can spend the point of momentum because you generated 4 successes, which is 1 point more than 1 point more than you needed. So that gives you a point of momentum. So I'm going to say that he's going to spare, or Osterhagen is going to spend that point of momentum to obtain information, which is a common momentum spend. So, okay, so the sensor scan is picking up. There could be very, very faint life signs, very, very faint, and Osterhagen has to really fiddle with the fiddle with the sensors to get anything out of them at all to that level of finesse. But basically, yes, you suspect that there are at least some life forms in the base, but you can't tell whether they're Akaru or something else. But they certainly that you definitely get a trace of them. But the problem is if Osterhagen tries to probe any deeper, he suspects he will set off this sensor net. Yes, Mike. Sorry, you had a question.
I was going to say, but you sort of answered it. I mean, you were working out whether there's any other power sources down there as opposed to just to the Kali energy sources. I'm particularly thinking about whether there could be Starship power sources, sort of like thinking whether that Marauder might have landed on that base.
Okay, so so again, you can. So what happens is you sort of gather in the situation room, which I think on the Defiant or the Vigilant, the Defiant class is like behind the captain's chair, isn't it?
Yeah, it's.
Isn't there like hang on, I'm going to bring up the deck plan of the.
Yeah, there's like a little.
There's like a situation table, isn't there?
Back there.
Yeah, that's right. They clear off their sandwiches from lunch. Yeah, that's right. There's a situation table at the back of the bridge.
Yeah.
For those of you in Roll20, I've kind of just brought that up. So yeah, so you kind of gather around the situation table, and so Naismith sort of goes around the room and says, "Okay, opinion." Osterhagen, fill us in. So he says, "Okay, so we've scanned the target of the signal. There is a structure of what appears to be Tilical origin. It's certainly several thousand years old, and potentially much older. I can't tell much more from with the readings I can get. There is very low level power being generated, very almost trace readings, and also we've managed to determine that there could be life signs, several." In the base. However, I can't tell from this distance whether they are Akaru or something else. It's just too. I can't risk going any further because what we've also detected is that there is an Akaru sensor net located around the area. And it's almost pure. It's almost luck that I haven't set the sensor net off already. The only source of power that I can see is coming from the base, and as I say, it's very, very minimal. Also, of course, there is a power source for the sensor net, but that's independent from the base, and again is consistent with the Karu technology. It's not being powered by the base. It's almost as if this sensor net has been placed over the base to keep an eye on it. And at the request of the first officer, I have checked, and as far as I can tell, there is no indication of engine trail from the Ferengi vessel that we detected earlier. So as far as I can tell, the Ferengi vessel has not been in that area. However, I do emphasise that my readings are limited by the accuracy of my scan, and I any further scans will risk setting off the detection net that they've put in place.
Will we know if they send a return message at all?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Now that obviously that's a very good question. That first message, yes, you've got the frequency and everything again, and this is such a thing. And bearing in mind, you've heard that this message has been sent on other worlds as well. So, but basically, yes, there's no doubt that if there is a response sent, that you will know about it, because there's no way that your sensors won't pick it up. Yeah, and again, Osterhagen has got the sensors kind of pointed in that direction, but not targeting the base specifically, but just got the sensors ready to go.
So, whilst we've got everyone gathered around this table, we need to brainstorm. I would love to know if this message is contemporary or if it's an echo. Say, if there's some malfunctioning machinery somewhere and it's sending off an ancient message, I'd love to know if it's a message for now or if it's an old message. Is there any way we can determine that? Any ideas?
I don't know whether Giara would know, but Sarah Jane doesn't.
I mean, okay. So Osterhagen can jump in here, and all he can tell you is that he can check the so he's looked for chronoton particles. That's the thing, isn't it? That's the time travel gizmo. So he said he scanned the message for the trace of the message for chronoton particles, and there's no indication that this message has come from the past or the future. It seems the Tetrion burst is because this message has been transmitted across dimensions. So what he's saying is it's like you would see with a wormhole or a spatial anomaly. And Tetrion particles. So basically, when the Deep Space Nine wormhole opens, it emits Tetrion particles. That's how they know it's going to open.
Yep.
And so these particles, these readings, simply suggest that this message has been transmitted from elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And there doesn't appear to be a time element, a time factor to it. So in other words, it's not being transmitted through time. It seems to be a current message, if you like.
Yeah, my concern was less that it's been sent through time and more that it was a recorded message that has recently been triggered. I know that's way harder to figure out.
That's a very good. Yeah,
and without a response, and like a back and forth, which would confirm, it's contemporary. I don't think there's really a way to figure out.
You're exactly right. So yeah, all he can tell you for sure is that the message was sent when it was sent. However, there's no way of telling, as you say, whether that message was recorded or because again, the fragment of the message is so degraded.
Yeah,
he can't. But as I say, he can't answer that question, unfortunately. But
yeah,
all he can tell you is it was not sent through time, but it was definitely sent through dimensional space.
Do we have any idea what is degrading the message? Why we're not getting a clear message?
Not at all.
Okay.
Best guess is purely the fact that it's being sent transdimensionally. So
yeah.
But again, his readings, the readings from the sensors can't really tell you that. Now, while this is going on, you get basically the helm officer who was it Hendrix? So the helm officer who I'm going to go with Hendrix. I'm not even sure if Hendrix is a helm officer, but we'll go with Hendrix. that the officer who's at the con, because obviously you lot are all clustered around the, you're clustered around the back having a meeting, and she says, "Sir, I'm picking up. There's a vessel. There are actually no wait. There are several vessels approaching from the planet's surface. They appear to be Akaru in design. They seem to be orbital capability only, but they are approaching. So, what do you want to do?
Are they hailing us? They're heading straight for us? Are they?
They're at a distance of approximately 3,000 kilometers, and they are closing, but slowly. They only seem to be on reaction drives, but they are definitely converging on our location. I'm now detecting 3 ships.
Okay, and are they trying to hail us?
Nothing yet, sir.
Nothing yet. Okay. Can we sense any of their shields, or I don't suppose they have weapons, really, do they, or do they?
Right, so Naismith and you kind of all go back to your. Oh, how I've missed moving things around on this map. It's fun. So, so presumably Kaz will probably take over at the helm.
Yep.
Kiara can basically go and probably stand by. You can go to engineering. You go over to your station there. I'll take her out of the way. Okay, so Naismith says, "Okay, put it on screen, Commander." So Kaz flicks a button and the display shows you. And sure enough, you can see there are 3 ships which they share some commonality in the design from the Star Ward, which was the ship that you rescued. Again, just to remind yourselves, if you flick back over to Discord in the general chat, the STA game chat thread, there is an image. If you go back up to the first image in this kind of group, which has got the ship being sort of blown up, but that's the Star Ward, and so these ships are much smaller cousins of that design. So they are clearly Akaru. They're definitely not anything sort of untoward. And you notice that they, as you're watching them on screen again, these things are manoeuvring quite slowly because they're not designed for interstellar. They're not interstellar ships. They are obviously orbital ships, but you notice they're sort of fanning out, so they're kind of separating, and they're almost taking up what you would call an attack posture. But the scans indicate so Kalish can scan. You don't need to make a roll for it because your tactical systems are not. You can see that they've only got essentially they've got low-powered laser weapons and guided missiles, effectively. None of which will
get past our shield.
Present you with any threat. Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be honest, the ablative armor would probably deal with it.
Yeah.
But again, they're not hailing you, but they're just as you watch on the display, they've obviously been launched, or they were already in orbit. You're not quite sure. Their trajectory suggests they were probably already in orbit.
Steve, can you read me? Sorry, Mike.
Can I track them back to their find out where they did come from?
Yeah, okay. You can do that. Again, I don't really need you to roll for that because again, the vigilance tactical systems are way more sophisticated. So you can see that they've actually been in orbit already. As we established last time, the Akaru do have orbital capability. They do have like orbital facilities. Although the starport was on the surface of the planet, but they do have, the equivalent of the IS. There's a couple of orbital, what you presume are a research.
As I say, the first the Star Ward was their first extra. Basically their first interstellar.
The Star Ward is their first warp capable ship. You know that they've had, again from your discussions, you know that they do have interplanetary capability, and they do have, and as I say, they've got orbital facilities, and you also know that they're building more of the warp ships, but the Star Ward is the first one. But these ships are definitely not, as I say, they're not that advanced. Their weaponry is primitive by your standards, although enough of them could cause a problem, I guess. But certainly 3 of them won't cause you any problem. And again, they're just kind of they're letting you know they're there, and they're kind of holding back now. You notice that they've come to come to a halt. But yeah, it seems strange to say the least.
Steve, could you read me the distorted message again?
Can do.
Get
So the distorted message is as follows. So again, static, masculine face with similar eyes to that of Ashtamalia. We are here because we desire it. Do not let the others, and then there's a break, into releasing. Break. Please break. If you can hear my words, turn back.
Turn back.
So that's exactly what the message contains.
So at the moment, I suspect everybody's thinking, do not release the others. Don't let them fool you into releasing them. Whether or not there's any truth to that.
So I am assuming that they have received the entirety of the message.
It's possible.
And they are reacting to that message, which is why they're coming to us.
As you are, as you're watching these, let's say these ships have, kind of, as I say, they've approached you. The Kaz, because obviously on these ships you've got. Actually, Kalish, you're receiving a message from the planet's surface. So you see there's an incoming transmission. So, do you want to let Naismith know?
Is that Kalish?
No,
Kalish. Sorry, I thought you said
Kaz.
Kaz.
No, Kalish, yeah.
Oh, Kalish. Yeah, yes, I will definitely let Naismith know.
Okay, so he says, okay, put it on audio, put it on Sergeant. So, it says this is Akaru Bark Chiel. On behalf of the Yaks and the Daon, I wish to thank you for your assistance in assisting our brothers and sisters in their safe return home. Unfortunately, the Yaks has become distracted with matters of state, and as such, I'm afraid our the time he has to grant you for an audience has passed. We certainly thank you for your friendly discussions and will indeed be in contact once we have considered the suggestion of further alliance with your federation. In the meantime, we would ask you to leave our orbital space so that we may return to our normal affairs. Thank you once again for your assistance, and I look forward to talking to you again at some point in the future. And he just cuts the message off.
Yep. I think we should be respectful and leave. I don't think we should hang around. We don't want to be aggressive.
So Naismith agrees with you. But again, again. This is because the way we're doing this is a democracy. Does anybody else have any kind of strong opinions to the contrary?
No.
And by the way, that was Karen's opinion. That's not necessarily Kolish's opinion.
Destroy them all. Yeah, I mean, so as you can see, on face value, now so Naismith's position is here. I mean, obviously, you've been invited to this planet.
I mean, the thing is, it's we've been politely asked to leave.
Yeah, you don't have any jurisdiction here. So you could, as we've established, you could in theory easily destroy these ships. But obviously, at the moment, your orders, and I'm going to just go back to the mission directives for this adventure, just to. So your directives for this mission were to render assistance to an alien vessel in distress, which you have done. To conduct a successful first contact with the Akaru, which you have done, and to look into the mystery surrounding the Yaks and the Daon. Now, you've done as much of that as you can. And as I say, it is your decision here how you want to play it. Naismith is essentially a pawn, under your control now. So if you want to push the issue and fight them, we can do that.
Part of me wants to withdrawal vigilant, and then come back in the runabout and have a look at that.
So I think first of all we should just retreat like I don't know half a light year and then just discuss. Right. So we'll just immediately pull back, but not far, but just pull back a little ways.
Okay, that's
And then we can
certainly
discuss it.
reasonable. Okay, so right, so Naismith says, okay, I think let's give ourselves a bit of breathing space here, people. Commander and to Kaz, set a course of 2-1. Hang on a minute, let me just think. Set a course of 272 Mark 4. Take us out of orbit at impulse, at half impulse. I will transmit a response to the Akaru back, and then on my order, go to warp 3 and take us out to 1 light year. Well, take us out to 1 light year. Okay, so he quickly dictates a message and says, this is Commander Naismith from the Vigilant. Whereas we are obviously disappointed to bring our discussions to a close, perhaps prematurely. We fully understand and respect your request. So
we appreciate your hospitality.
Yeah, we appreciate your hospitality. You have our thanks for your kind attention, and we will.
We look forward to picking up.
Yeah, look forward
where
to
we
meeting with you again in the future, and we will pass on. We will discuss this with our diplomatic corps, and again, look forward to talking to you again in the future. And with that, he transmits the message.
Oh, sorry, Steve. One last thing. If we can assist in any way, please don't hesitate to get in contact.
Perfect. Exactly. So again, if you require any assistance, then please do not hesitate to contact us. Please find encoded within this message subspace frequencies that will allow you to make direct contact. And then with that, it's Naismith out. He says, "Okay, Commander, let's get out of here." And Kaz turns the Vigilant, and the Vigilant leaps away at impulse or half impulse. Very quickly leaving behind the Akaru vessels, and once you've cleared the sort of immediate orbital space, if you like, the sort of 3-mile limit of Akaru, then Naismith says, "Okay, very well, Commander. Take us up to warp 2, and then hold at 1 light year." And so Vigilant goes to warp. Literally takes 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
I'm just looking it up now.
Very short
I'm
amount
just
of time.
looking it up now because I'm sad git.
It didn't take very long, does it?
I'm trying to work out.
Well, I'm gonna say it takes no more than 10 minutes.
It takes an argument.
Yeah, and basically the ship. Yeah, basically, so you take it out to warp, and the ship then drops out of warp, and obviously you're well clear of. You're out in sort of interstellar space. And at that point, so right, you dropped. So, was there anything else you'd like to do at this point, or are you just going to observe?
Just
from
observe from a distance.
Okay, so Naismith has the sensors trained on the Icarus on the Setu system, and you observe for a couple of hours. Initially, a couple of hours. So basically, you settle down into a routine. You can go and take.
For what it's worth, warp 9.5. It would take you 3.4 hours to travel 1 light year.
Is that right? Oh, bloody hell.
Wow. Okay.
Longer than I thought. Okay. So let's
warp 9.
Maybe only like half a light year or something. Then
half a light
year.
year.
Don't need to go that
let's
far.
say Naismith orders the ship to like warp 5, and it takes you 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So you drop out. Whatever happens, you're at half a light year, so you're well outside of the system, and basically you observe for a few hours. Nothing untoward happens. You do not note anything. There's no again, from this distance, you can't really tell much in the sort of close orbit. There's certainly no sign of the Star Ward or any of the other vessels being launched. And then, hang on a second.
Steve, did we give them a way to contact us?
Yes, you sent them a. You used a subspace frequency to allow them to contact you directly.
Okay.
Now, guys, I'm just going to say that I'm going to wrap it up here because I need to take over downstairs.
Cool.
So I think, has anyone got any questions that they want to ask very briefly before I wrap it up, or can we pick it up next time?
I've got a million questions. None of them are brief, so I'll save them for next time.
Perfect. Well, let's do that. Let's pick it up next time. I'll just say thank you very much for your kind attention again. I really appreciate it. You're, as always, when you turn up, and thanks for sharing this this adventure with me. And I will speak to you next time. So this is Starship Vigilant signing off from episode 51, and we'll catch you next time.
Cheers, Steve. Bye-bye, everyone.
See you guys. All the best.
Well, no.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Starship Vigilant. Kaz was played by Mike. David Osterhagen was played by Kevin. Kolish was played by Kerin. Our music is Fanfare for Space by Kevin MacLeod, which is licensed under a Creative Commons license. See you next time.